Welcome back to the Faithful Farmstead, where we as a family are reclaiming our Amish roots and helping you reclaim yours. We are being faithful with what we are given right now. And if you've been following our journey, being faithful right now means reclaiming an abandoned, overgrown garden that just needs a lot of help with the soil. So we've been working really hard. You can see I have put topsoil and compost down in my rows. Behind me, here's another one. And so we're seeing some black dirt in here. And I got my electrolytes, and we are going to plant some tomatoes today. And there's a reason why I unloaded bananas, Epsom salts, and eggs with my tomato plants. So these are my tomato starts, and they desperately needed to get out of our bedroom, and they need to be planted first. Now you can see I do have some damage on them, and that's all my fault because I lost track of my hardening off time process, and I left them out in the sun, full sun, for too long, too soon, and so they have some sun scorch on them. So like that leaf there where it's kind of white, they got sunburned. Did you know tomatoes can get sunburned? Tomatoes are like super resilient, so I'm not too worried about that. When I put them in the ground, if I can, I'll trim off some of those sunburned leaves. But we're gonna plant them really deep in this row, and we're gonna use my lovely trick. So I'm gonna set you all up. We'll chat, little time lapse, all the things. With tomatoes, there are two different types of tomatoes. There are interdeterminate tomatoes, which continue to grow up and up and up throughout the whole season. A trellis works the best for that. You can really use anything for a trellis. We're using cattle panels this year just because they were all over the property when we moved in. So we're using what we have, which I really like, cattle panels as a trellis. But interdeterminate tomatoes will grow all season long. I've had 8-foot high tomatoes to my first frost in the fall. And then there are determinate tomatoes, which form more of like a bush, and they provide all of their fruit usually in the same like time frame of like 2 or 3 weeks, and then you'll get some that trickle here and there until they die. Where interdeterminate tomatoes you'll pick from like here and there throughout the whole season. So I grow both because interdeterminate tomatoes we like for fresh eating. I put them in a bag for the freezer, let them accumulate, and then I can them. And then determinate tomatoes, because they produce all of their fruit all at once, I just have a big old canning day. Today I'm gonna plant my interdeterminate tomatoes first and see how many I can fit along here. I plant interdeterminate tomatoes 18 inches apart, and something I started years ago was I made little marks on my hoe, if you can see it. And this is my measuring stick because this is also my tool that I use in the garden, the hoe, and I can just lay this down and measure it. Another thing that I love to plant with tomatoes is basil. And so I have my basil starts here that I started. I have my basil starts that I started inside. And so some of these, there's like a couple in each pod, but I'll just pull them apart. Basil doesn't mind their roots disturbed. There's some flowers in here too. And the other thing I plant with my tomatoes, honestly, all over my garden, all over my garden is, lighting. The other thing I plant is marigolds, because marigolds are really good for the soil, and they can deter pests and critters. And they're just really pretty. They bloom all the way to fall. So what can you not love about them? So every row always gets at least one marigold. And I often plant like the edges of my garden with marigolds because they're just so pretty. The first thing I'm gonna do is space out this row. I'm just gonna lay a banana every 18 inches so I know where to plant. let's talk a little bit about why I put an egg, a banana, and a handful of Epsom salts with my tomatoes. So years ago, an old farmer told me to do this, and I started doing it, and I saw a drastic difference in my production and in the health of my tomatoes. Now, the egg, people will say, well, that's not gonna break down in one season, but eventually it does build up in your soil and adds soil, as that breaks down in your soil, it adds nutrients to your soil, calcium. And I personally, I've never had blossom end rot with tomatoes that I put an egg in the hole. So people say, oh, that doesn't work. Well, I've seen results that it does, so I will keep doing it. The banana adds potassium, and also it just draws those earthworms. Because think about if you leave a banana on your counter, how fast that decomposes, it gets brown, it gets mushy. While you're burying it in dirt, that process is gonna happen pretty fast, and it's gonna draw the earthworms to your tomato roots, where they'll poop, and they'll leave all that liquid gold and castings for your tomatoes to take up. And then the Epsom salts just gives them a boost of magnesium and calcium. And so I have seen wondrous results doing this, and I will always do it. This year we had enough of our own eggs to be able to do it, and then I just buy bananas and Epsom salts. If there is any kind of like sticker on your banana, take that off. I dig the hole deep enough that I could put all of this in the bottom, and then I just put a little bit of dirt on top and then plant my tomato on top of that. So let's get this row planted. Because we're building this soil up, I'm not going as deep as I normally would, just because I don't want to go down into all of that rock. So normally I would go a lot deeper. If you want to see previous videos of how I did tomatoes, you can go back to my old videos. It's okay to break the banana, but you do not want to break the egg because the critters will dig it up. And then for tomato, we just take off the bottom leaves. So normally I would plant like all the way up to here, so you can see there's a little bit of a difference there. I may still get more compost and like mound it up in that area. Yep, I covered my tag. Ah, where'd it go? What the world? The tag disappeared. Okay, whatever. It's a beefsteak. And this is why we tilled the garden, because of these crazy weed roots. That's nuts. Some of this soil is still just hard. It's gonna take time, y'all. Okay. Grow, baby, grow. All right, I'm thinking I may pivot this year because these holes are not getting as deep as I want them to. I may just plant my tomato and then plant the banana and the egg like next to it somewhere. The first tomato row is planted. Now some I did make the hole big enough that the banana and egg fit. Some I just put next to it. So you know what? It's an experiment. Gardening, you're just always learning. You're always trying things. Don't be afraid to fail. That's just the joy of gardening. And you have to view it that way. That everything's a learning experience. Some years might have failures, but then you learn from it. You learn what not to do, what to do, and this garden's gonna be a lot of that. So now I'm gonna plant my basil. I always plant my basil in the front or the back of my tomatoes as like a hedge, and I swear it makes tomatoes sweeter. I mean, they go good together in food, so why not? And it just helps with a healthy ecosystem. So I'm gonna do that next, and then I'll mulch this with wood chips to keep all the moisture in. It smells good already. Let's start with the lettuce leaf basil. This is one of my favorites to grow. It produces really big leaves of basil, hence the name lettuce leaf basil. And you can use it in place of bread and like wrap up salami and cheese with basil, wrapped in basil. I love this time of year. So for here, I should have let these dry out a little bit more. It would have been easier to get them out. Look at those roots. And then there's 2 in here. And so this is a trick. If you go to a store, you can buy basil plants that have more than 1 stem, and you just pull them apart and voila, you have 2 basil plants. And with basil, they can be planted really close together. So we're just gonna make like a little hedge along this tomato row. It's gonna be pretty. Another favorite basil to grow is any kind of purple basil. We love to make basil tea. With this one especially, you add a little lemon, a little honey juice, or a little lemon juice and honey, and it's delicious. We first heard about it from Jess at Roots and Refuge Farm, and now we are hooked. My kids were like, "Mom, are you growing purple basil this year to make tea?" So this will be a staple now in our family. So thank you, Jess, if you ever see this. This right here is the secret ingredient to building this soil. So we loaded up a bunch of wood chips with the mower here. We've been getting them delivered in the pasture, which is awesome. And after talking to some friends and just doing some research about how to grow in rocky soil and what to do to build it, I feel much more encouraged, and I'm very, very grateful for the wood chips that we have. Because basically what I'm planning on doing is topping where I really want to plant this year with the topsoil and then some compost, and then I'm going to mulch it really, really, really thickly. My kid got stuck in a tree. Anyway, then the last step that I'm doing after I plant, I'm coming in and I am going to load this garden up with wood chips. I'm going to mulch everything. One, that is really what's worked in the past for me to build soil and to hold in moisture, and that's what I'm planning on doing again. And so this is going to get mulched all up, and then where the cardboard here is the walkway, I'm going to mulch that super, super heavy. And the thing with the cardboard, worms love cardboard, and so that will slowly break down. It's going to hold back the weeds this year. But then also the wood chips in the pathways, as they break down, those nutrients leach into the rows around them. And so you just get a really good ecosystem. And yeah, starting over, I feel a bit more encouraged because I know that it works. I did it the past property for 7 years. We had beautiful soil there. And so we're just gonna start again and just pray that this year we grow some food. So I'm gonna mulch this bed. All right, y'all, it's planted. And I'm working on the walkway there. And while I was scooping the wood mulch and putting it down, there were worms like crawling all throughout it. So just lots of good confirmation for my heart that Stuff will grow here. It'll be fine. And we will just be faithful with what we're given. Today it was planting my first ever tomato row here, which feels really monumental, and I'm excited. So stay tuned, lots more garden content coming. We are building a raised bed here soon, and we're gonna show you guys how we do that and the company that we use and all that stuff. So stay tuned.